Our next guest is Brandon Kyikavichik. Brandon was born and raised in Old Crow and has been making a difference in his community, not only as a councillor for the Bantag Gwitchin government, but also his inspirational and influential work showcasing Gwitchin language, knowledge, culture through films, scripts, and storytelling initiatives. We're thrilled to have, as a part of our speaker series today, please join me welcome Brandon Kyikavichik. Woohoo! I forgot to mention also a good Habs fan, my friend. So that's a great way to wrap up this segment of today. So for the listeners and the viewers who may not be familiar who with Brandon K is, can you talk a little bit about who you are and what capacity you represent in your First Nation?
Thank you, Grand Chief. Well, first of all, my name is Brandon Kyikavichik, and that's sort of the anglicized way of saying it. The way you say it properly is Kyikavichik, and Ki is arrow, and Kavichik is let me carry it. And what was the question?
I just tell a little bit about who you are and what makes you tick, my friend.
Well, very studious, enthusiastic type of person. Like to learn, love learning. I've always loved learning. When I was about 12 years old, I got in some trouble. My grandfather, his name was John Joe Kyikavichik. He used to walk around town looking for me at night when I'm out too late, and he just happened to find me that night, and I was in trouble. And so he, instead of, my dad took a little different approach. He kind of pretty much beat the crap out of me. And after he was finished, my grandpa came in and he said, "I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to teach you a lesson. So I'm going to take you out on the land with me." So I went out on the land with him, and it was spending all that time, just the two of us, from April till June at his camp, and setting muskrat traps, hunting caribou, doing all those things. At the end of the day, he would tell me stories and stuff, and I got inspired to learn about my culture and to learn my language. So I remember the moment it happened, actually. My grandfather, he made a little bow and arrow for me because I was bored. I was always bored because my grandpa sleeps at 8 p.m. at night, and, I'm just sitting there twiddling my thumbs. I read every book I had, every comic I had. So my grandpa, I told him about it. So he made a little bow and arrow for me with arrows. And then I would run around. I set up these little cardboard boxes on the tops of little short trees, and then I'd run around pretending I'm hunting caribou, shooting at them. So one day, I was doing that while my grandfather was having a nap, and then I noticed he woke up and went to go do something. And I was like, oh, this is a good time to try and steal some cigarette butts. So I ran there, and I went to look through his little cigarette butt stash, and I saw there was like a blanket there, and I lifted it over, and when I lifted it off, I saw the corner of a book. I was like, what the heck, a book? So I pulled it out, and I couldn't figure out why the heck my grandpa would have a book, because my grandpa never went to school. He don't even know how to read. So I looked at it, and it turned out it was Edith Josie. It was every article she had ever written, complete with pictures of the people, which is why he had the book, was to look at the pictures. So I read that book, and that's what, my grandfather made those old-timers seem like superheroes. But then when I read the book, they were these very human people with these very human issues that they were trying to work out every day, and I just found it to be fascinating. So that's where I started. I decided at 12 years old I was going to learn my language, and I was going to learn about my culture of the culture of the old timers is what I'll call it, I guess.
Sheesh. And one of the first times I met you, and we as an organization, the Council of Yukon First Nations, has gone through many different changes and a lot of constitutional reforms. We went through many different exercises, and we're still going through them to a certain degree. But I was very impressed that the leadership at that point chose you as a young person in 2003 to be a part of that constitutional committee to go around to the Yukon. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what it meant to you as a young person still trying, and a lot of young people, as we talked earlier, is just still trying to find our identity. What did that process mean to you to be amongst the people such as Dave Joe and the Paul Burkles of the world, let alone Norma Cassie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the first time that I was introduced to the whole land claims, self-government, the history, the process, all of that stuff. I was about 19 years old, and it was my first time being exposed to it, and it's darn lucky that I was. And I had some really good people around me, you know. Dave Joe and Dave, I'd always sit there and listen to his stories. He has really, really good stories about like when it was all starting out and driving around and busted up vans and having to push it up 2 Mile Hill and all that. And that was quite inspiring as well, to learn about what our people went through in order to accomplish this incredible goal, all doing it for free, working for free, volunteering, and everything that they went through in order to do it. I thought it was incredible. So I'm sort of an aficionado now on like the history of it and how it all works and all of that stuff, because once I had that exposure, then that's what my mind locked on to. That's what I was going to learn. So I studied, I researched, I asked questions, listened to stories. If it weren't for that experience, Norma Cassie, Dave Joe, Paul Burkle, Agnes Mills. Agnes Mills had a very profound effect on me. It was an incredible experience, and it's a good thing I went through it, because now today I've made the effort to learn about that history, and I'll be able to pass that history down to the younger generation someday.
For sure. Another inspirational time that I had a chance to meet you, we brought the NHL alumni, the Indigenous alumni in 2018, and we went to your cultural center there, and you had the map of the whole Vuntut, and you spoke to it so intimately in regards to what certain places, and we talked about caribou fences to different things. How important is your role today in that reverbing or retelling of the stories? As you mentioned, you know, just learning from our elders and learning from instrumental people. How important is your role today for the next generation, let alone the visitors that come to visit your community?
Well, my role is certainly no more important than any elders or anything like that. But eventually I will be sort of at that level once I get, you know, little older, I guess. I think the special thing about what I do is that I have a team who works with me. I have one younger elder and one older elder. The younger elder can hear it perfectly, and she can speak it perfectly. Dinjizukyu is a polysynthetic language, which makes it extremely difficult to learn, but also, if you get one syllable off, it'll change the whole meaning of the word. So the special thing is I have Marion, who can hear it perfectly and speak it perfectly, into the ears of Erwin Linklater, who was raised by the woman, Eliza Steamboat, mentioned by Stanley Najutli, who pointed out where they could find the mammoths. Erwin Linklater was raised by her. She was born at a caribou fence. Now, this is the point that I'm getting to, okay? It's strange to me that we get single translators to translate all of our stories, and all of our stories essentially make up our encyclopedia, right? Now, if you were to ask somebody even to translate one chapter of an encyclopedia, they probably wouldn't be able to do it all, right? So my team and I, we can get the oldest stories, which are very complex, which hold all of our philosophies, our sciences, and all of that. Instead of putting them into books, we frame them into story form, and then we pass those stories down. And a lot of those stories are not getting translated properly. So what my team offers is we get those stories translated properly, and then I can sort of bring to light what our pre-Christian culture was. And I think that is going to be incredibly important at a time when that pre-Christian knowledge is going to be almost completely lost. And Erwin is probably the last one who can do it, and we're running out of time, but we're trying to get as much done as we can. And so what I'm going to do is paint the fullest picture I possibly can of our pre-Christian culture from Mammoth days right up until the 1800s. The fullest picture I possibly can, put it into a book. It'll be our encyclopedia. Instead of the Encyclopedia Britannica, I'll call it the Encyclopedia Vantatica. And and it'll have everything in there, everything, as much information as I can possibly save before it's too late about our pre-Christian culture.
Awesome stuff, buddy. We talked about the challenges that our youth face today, and one of them is just being distracted by many things, right? And then we talk about crises, we talk about our cell phones, our smartphones. How important is the oral history still to our people today?
Well, so, language informs our being, okay? How we communicate with each other is who we are as a people, okay? Now, our language, in order to get it back, because they're polysynthetic languages, which are really hard to learn, you have to switch your brain. You have to go from being a city person in a contemporary society to being a bush person and seeing the world from somebody who lives in the wilderness. And this is really, really important because we're losing all that now. And it's only through our language that we will gain that back.
Yeah, and you talked about pre-Christianity, and I think that's very important. My father and I have many good discussions in regards to that. What have you learned throughout that period of time that's different than today, if you will, when it comes down to prior to contact, if you will?
Well, there were some things that I was completely surprised to find. For instance, we had economies. We had systems of currency. You could literally buy things long ago. One of the systems of currencies we had was dyes. It turns out dyes were used as currency all over the world in ancient times. The Egyptians traded in a blue dye. The Phoenicians traded in a red dye. I was able to find out all of this high sophistication that I wasn't expecting to find. You know, I'm just going to be honest here. We, as Indigenous people, the colonial state teaches us that we're just simpletons. We just barely survive foot to mouth in the bush. But what I'm finding in our oral histories completely shoots all that to crap. And if you don't know much about archaeology, okay, the archaeological field is actually quite racist. And the biggest problem I have with the archaeology field is that you'll find, if you ever study archaeology, is that they start, first of all, when they're studying the social dynamics of cultures, right? When they're studying those things, they put farming societies at the most complex, most highly civilized. If you don't know about that word civilized, it comes from the Latin word for city, because long ago they thought only people who built cities were complex and sophisticated. So that's why we say civilized today, and civility and civic duty and all of that stuff. So these archaeologists have painted the picture that farming societies are more complex and more sophisticated, and hunter-gatherer societies are simpletons, less sophisticated. They're happy just to live off the land. Well, that's not what I'm finding. What I'm finding is high levels of sophistication with economies, systems of currency. We invented sign language. I mean, the list, you can go on and on and on and on down the list of our world would not be what it is today without Indigenous innovation, Indigenous wherewithal, Indigenous philosophy. We would not be where we are today, and a lot of people don't know this. I was surprised myself to find such a high level of sophistication, because for some reason the colonial state wants to paint the picture that we were just small bands of simpletons just barely surviving. But that's not what's in our oral histories. What's in our oral histories strong, smart, intelligent people who could survive any situation that they were faced with. That's where we come from.
Ah, sheesh. And if you're just tuning into Shone FM or Facebook Live, you're listening to the 50th anniversary of Together Today for Our Children Tomorrow speaker series. And we have Brandon Kyikavichik live here in the studio. Just in regards to what is your relationship with the current education system, and how did it treat you, if you will, and how did it accommodate you as a young individual from Vantat?
Well, the education system did absolutely nothing for me, and the system actually it does more to hurt us than it does to help us. But there were teachers, individuals who saw something in me, who put a lot of time and effort into me, and without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I do have to put that out there. But it's the system, though. It's the system that is not designed for us, and it's a system that is setting us up to fail. We even do it even in our language journeys, right? I mean, we send someone to a master apprentice program, and we give them no skills. We offer them no skills or training to be successful in that master's apprentice program. They're trying to learn polysynthetic languages, which are the hardest languages to learn, especially coming from English. Okay, English is an analytic language. One idea is contained in each expression. And with polysynthetic languages, multiple ideas are contained in each expression. Now, when you're speaking language, you're trying to paint a picture in the other person's mind, or you're trying to put a picture in the other person's mind, rather. With English being an analytic language, it's like puzzle pieces, and you put the picture in their mind piece by piece with puzzles. A polysynthetic language is more like brushstrokes. You're like painting a picture for them. And what makes English analytical is that you can take all those little pieces apart and you can analyze them. But you can't do that with polysynthetic languages. So in order to learn a polysynthetic language, first of all, you have to know what a polysynthetic language is. And most of the people working with our languages don't. They don't know much about linguistics. And for goodness sakes, please, you have to at least know the difference between a verb and a noun. So we're sending these kids to these programs with absolutely no skills to be successful. If we want them to be successful, we give them the skills they're going to need first. They have to learn to read and write in their modern orthographies. They have to know a little bit about polysynthetic languages. They have to know a little bit about linguistics, and please at least know the difference between a verb and a noun.
Mm-hmm. What is your perspective? Where are we at in regards to where our youth are at? And obviously growing up in Vantat, you talked about just being challenged to find something to do. Where do you see our children and our youth today?
Well, like you mentioned before, really, first of all, I want to highlight what you mentioned about our young people using the land, going out hunting in Old Crow. It's really good to see they are practicing it, and they're really trying it. But there are some things that worry me about the youth. What makes Indigenous people special is we have this ability to focus on things for long periods of time. We can focus on a job until we get it done. And that is a really good gift to have in any situation in life. People who have the ability to focus like that can get through any obstacle. And that's what we're losing today with all these little gadgets and cell phones and everything else. They just do not have the ability to focus that we once had. And that's what's scaring me a little bit. And plus, I come to these meetings, we're here in these places, we're always in this building, and right outside, young kids are dying in the streets. I have buried 2 times more people than I've lived in years. I'm only 37. I shouldn't be saying that until I'm 80 or 90, right? Now, we've got young people dying in the streets. We've got people, they don't know who they are anymore. They don't know where they come from. And it's a very scary, slippery slope right now. And, really, I think what we really need to do is we need to zero in on it right? Zero in, like, what is it that is causing these problems? And then we just start looking at each issue and focus on each one. How are we going to remedy this, right? It's much easier said than done.
Yes.
The problem is not the ideas. We all have the ideas of how to do it. The problem is not having enough people to do the work. And that's the scary thing.
So what do we do? That is the challenge. As I mentioned, even with the leadership, we struggle with a lot of the challenges, and it's the opioid reality. It's the loss of our language. How do we overcome these things? Like, let alone be together on these issues, because we're separated even on the education system on how we should deliver it. Right? It's not all collective.
I mean, like, the drugs. Like, I don't know what to do about the drugs, but if we could find a way to curb what's happening with the drugs. We can't eliminate it, but if we could find a way to curb what's happening, that would make a huge difference, I think. I think really the drugs, the modern globalized society with all these little gadgets and everything, I mean, these are conversations we really do need to start having. And how are we going to move forward? What is the plan moving forward? I don't have all the answers, but I would definitely take part in something like that. Offer whatever kind of support I can offer, right? We need to get some of our best and brightest in the same room working on this stuff together.
Yes. And we've always been, you talk about being simpleton, but our life was very simple in regards to today's expectation, let alone the globalization. What do we have to do to inspire our youth to not only understand together today for our children to mourn the significant sacrifices and dedication our people had? And you mentioned being focusing on one thing. 20 years we negotiated these land claims to get it right, rather than just accepting something in early 84. What do we need to do to inspire our youth to be involved, let alone to really respect where they come from, let alone who they are?
Well, like I got started with the committee that you mentioned. The name of it is slipping me right now.
It's the Constitutional Committee.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I got started on that, and that led me, it didn't even just lead me down a constitutional path, it led me to where I am today. So I think the youth need platforms, and really leaders should know who their youth are, what their skills are, what their situations are, and leaders should be like going out there, talking to them, inspiring them, telling them, look, I notice you're good at this. Maybe you should go try this out. I think you might be good at that because I see what you're doing every day and it looks really good. So maybe if you were to do this, you'll be good at it and you should do it, right? And if we could have more togetherness again, and togetherness is not just coming together for meetings. Togetherness is knowing each other. That's togetherness, is knowing each other. I know my family. I know my sisters and brothers. I knew my grandparents, right? And when you know people, then you can talk to them about specific things that they're going through. And you can say, I've been noticing this, and I think this might be an avenue you can take, right? It's a hands-on approach that usually works with Indigenous people, is what I've noticed.
And what is the power of the land? We talk about land all the time, but we're not on it anymore. After these agreements have been implemented, it's taken us now into a whole different setting, right? Off the land, into an office setting, into negotiations, into meetings, over to Ottawa. How important and significant is the piece of the land, if you will, when it comes to that?
Well, I mean, look, man, like me, when I do the work that I'm doing, I spend 5 hours a day translating with my team. Then I spend three hours doing edits. And then there's a lot of extra time that goes into that too, studying, researching, all that stuff. And I told my boss, I was like, this job is probably going to kill me. It's going to kill me as sure as a bullet in the head would, just only slower. Because I have to spend so much time on the editing and everything else that I don't get out enough. I don't get out on the land enough. Getting out on the land revitalizes you. It brings your morale up. It makes you feel things that you don't feel otherwise. That's why the elders always miss it. So the land, it literally does heal us. It literally does heal us. And every day I wake up and I walk outside and I hear the crow. There's a raven that chirps my name. Bruntung, bruntung. It does that. It knows me. It knows me. It's my good friend, that raven. That's my real good friend. My grandpa too was a real good friend with birds. Birds are our best friends. They'll help you stave off loneliness in the bush too. They know it too. They know it. They become good friends with you. Loons, watch when loons take off when you're sitting on a lake. If they go, hui, and then if they slap once, that means you're still alone. But if they go, hui, and they slap twice, that means there's an intruder. Somebody else came, that's why they're taking off. Every day I walk out of my house and that crow, that raven, and I'm just grateful to be where I'm from. To be where I'm from, that I'm live right in the wilderness like that. Pretty soon, not many people are going to have that. We should be grateful that we have it every day, that we get to wake up there.
How do we get our youth to be inspired by that? I mean, with all the challenges, I go back to that again. I mean, let alone being an isolated community, how do you get your youth to buy in to what is who we are? You talk about the history.
Well, you talked about the on the land camp and stuff before. I mean, that's a really good avenue to take. Get the kids out there, man. Some of these people who are on the streets and stuff that are going to be at those camps, some of them are really good with kids, you know, and kids really like them. They have good energy and stuff. And even them, they could teach them some things too, if you were able to run it in a way where anybody could go to it. And anybody, say, if you're just hanging out and you just feel like you want to get out on the land, you can just drive out there and go there, sit around the fire with people, drink good tea, eat good food, hear good stories. It's all the healing we need, man.
Yes. So we talked a lot about Chief Elijah Smith and the impact that he had to our communities. If you could pen a letter from the future today, what would that letter say to Elijah?
I would start by saying Elijah Smith, because that's what my grandpa called him. Well, I would just thank him, Masit Cho. My grandfather really looked up to you. He talked about you all the time when he told stories. He talked about Elijah Smith and how amazing Elijah Smith was. And Masit Cho, for everything you did. Our lives have definitely improved because of your work, but there's still lots of work for us to do yet, and we're going to do our best. We'll try our best in your name.
Sheesh. And just to wrap things up, what would be your motivational words to the future as well, to the next generation?
You guys better get ready, because old elderly Brandon is coming.
Brandon Kyikavichik, folks. Woohoo! And with the token of our appreciation, we have a nice gift for you today, and I just want to thank you very much for your time.